Did you know that Julius Caesar's legions weren't just ordinary armies, but meticulously trained war machines? Imagine yourself on the front lines of a battle, facing an unimaginable force where every soldier fights, not only with discipline, but with a precision that seems almost superhuman. This didn't happen by chance. Most people think Caesar's power came from his strategic genius or political alliances. But what if I told you the real secret behind Caesar's invincibility lay in the brutal and relentless training his legions underwent? While other armies relied on numbers or luck, Caesar's soldiers were shaped into perfect weapons. And it was this transformation that redefined the way war was fought. Now think about it. What truly separates an ordinary army from an unstoppable force? It's not just the number of soldiers or the quality of the weapons. It goes much deeper than that. There's a reason Caesar's legions dominated the battlefield, and that reason might surprise you. What happened inside Caesar's training camps was a real crucible of military perfection. Every move, every strategy, every weapon used by the legions had a clear and deadly purpose. Want to know how these men became so lethal they left their enemies in a panic? You're about to find out. Get ready to dive into the story of one of the most feared and respected armies of all time. By the end of this video, you'll see how the rigorous training of Caesar's legions not only shaped a war machine, but also completely revolutionized the art of battle. Let's begin. Julius Caesar's legions were not born from mere chance or tradition. Their roots lay in a period of immense change within the Roman Republic, as Rome transitioned from a small city-state to a sprawling empire. Before Caesar, Roman armies had already earned a reputation for their organization, but they were far from the unstoppable force they would become under his command. Caesar, known for his ambition and tactical genius, understood that to conquer and maintain such vast territories, he needed more than just strategy. He needed soldiers who were hardened, disciplined, and capable of adapting to any battlefield. He saw the potential to create an elite force, one that would redefine what it meant to be a legionary. Recruitment into Caesar's legions was no casual affair. Only men of Roman citizenship, primarily from Italy, were selected, ensuring a bond of loyalty not just to their general, but to the Republic itself. These men were often farmers or tradesmen with little experience in warfare. Yet, what they lacked in experience, Caesar's training would compensate for. He knew that ordinary men could be transformed into lethal warriors through strict discipline and unrelenting physical conditioning. The legions were not just about brute strength. They were built upon unwavering loyalty to Caesar and a shared sense of duty to Rome. This unity would be the key to their strength on the battlefield. The organization of Caesar's legions was another crucial factor in their success. Unlike the chaotic armies of his enemies, Caesar's forces operated with precision. They were divided into cohorts, each with around 480 men, led by centurions who were handpicked for their leadership and combat prowess. These smaller, flexible units allowed for greater control and adaptability during battles. It wasn't just about having soldiers. It was about having a system that could react quickly and effectively to any challenge on the field. This structured organization was revolutionary in its time, providing a sense of order that many of Rome's adversaries lacked. What made Caesar's legions truly unique, however, was the almost familial bond he fostered with his men. Caesar was known to march alongside his soldiers, share their rations, and sleep under the same conditions. This earned him their undying loyalty, a crucial element in any military force. Unlike other generals who ruled through fear or detachment, Caesar was deeply connected to his men. They would fight and often die not just for Rome, but for him personally. This level of commitment was rare in ancient warfare, and it was this relationship that often gave Caesar the edge, even against numerically superior forces. The psychological impact of this unity was profound. Caesar's enemies were not just facing a Roman army. They were facing a cohesive, tightly knit brotherhood of warriors who trusted each other and their leader implicitly. When these legions marched into battle, they did so with the confidence of men who knew they were part of something far greater than themselves. They were the embodiment of Roman power, and under Caesar's leadership, They became the most feared military force of their time. Caesar's legions were not born formidable. They were forged through grueling and unforgiving training regimens that pushed each soldier to the limits of human endurance. The cornerstone of this training was discipline, an uncompromising demand that shaped every aspect of a legionary's life. Recruits were drilled for hours, often in full armor, under the blistering sun or in harsh weather conditions, with no regard for comfort. The purpose was not just to build strength, but to create a soldier who could function with precision and efficiency under the most extreme circumstances. There was no room for weakness. Only the strongest and most resilient survived this initiation. The physical training alone was a brutal test of endurance. Legionaries were required to march over 20 miles a day with a full pack of equipment, weapons, and armor. These marches were designed not only to build stamina, but also to prepare soldiers for the rigors of long campaigns, where mobility and endurance were critical. Each man had to be capable of quick movements in battle, responding to commands instantly and without hesitation. This constant drilling turned every action into second nature, ensuring that in the heat of battle, no time was wasted on indecision or disorganization. But it wasn't just about physical strength. Caesar's legions were also trained to think strategically. Every soldier was taught the importance of formation, battlefield positioning, and adapting to the environment. These men were not mindless brutes. They were tactically trained warriors who could read a battlefield and react accordingly. The Roman testudo formation, for example, where soldiers interlocked their shields to create a nearly impenetrable wall, was a testament to the importance of coordination. These formations required a level of synchronization that could only be achieved through endless repetition and a deep understanding of tactics. Weapons training was equally rigorous. Legionaries became experts in the use of the gladius, a short sword designed for stabbing, which was devastating in close combat. They also mastered the pilum, a type of javelin that could penetrate enemy shields and armor. These weapons were not chosen at random. They were the result of Roman innovation, designed to complement the fighting style of the legions. Soldiers were trained to exploit the weaknesses of their enemies with swift and deadly precision, turning each encounter into a calculated slaughter rather than chaotic melee combat. Every movement was deliberate, every strike purposeful. The psychological aspect of training was perhaps the most grueling of all. Caesar's soldiers were taught to embrace hardship as a constant companion. Hardship and discipline were the core of their identity, and this mindset allowed them to endure battles that would break lesser men. Fear was not an option. They were drilled to act as a single unit, each man trusting the other to hold the line no matter the cost. This collective mindset was Caesar's greatest weapon, transforming individual soldiers into a unified, deadly force that moved as one, thought as one, and fought as one. The success of Caesar's legions wasn't just rooted in their physical and psychological conditioning. It was also a direct result of the weapons they wielded and the tactical innovations they employed. At the heart of the legion's arsenal was the gladius, a short sword that was designed specifically for stabbing rather than slashing. This may seem like a minor detail, but it fundamentally changed the way Roman soldiers fought. In close combat, the stabbing motion was more effective, requiring less space and delivering a more lethal blow to vital organs. The gladius allowed for efficient killing in the tight formations Roman soldiers were known for, reducing the chaos of battle to a deadly, methodical process. Equally significant was the pilum, a javelin that served a dual purpose. Thrown at the enemy just before engaging in close combat, the pilum could pierce shields and armor, rendering defensive lines vulnerable. What made the pilum particularly devastating was its design. After hitting a shield, the shaft would bend, making it nearly impossible for the enemy to throw it back. This meant that once a volley of pilum was thrown, the enemy would not only be physically harmed, but also forced to abandon their primary means of defense. The psychological impact of this weapon was as damaging as its physical effect, leaving enemies disoriented and unprotected as the legionaries closed in. Tactics were just as crucial as weaponry. The Roman legions under Caesar perfected the art of battlefield formations, with the testudo, or tortoise formation, being one of their most famous. In this formation, soldiers would interlock their shields to form a nearly impenetrable wall on all sides, allowing them to advance on the enemy with minimal exposure to projectiles. This tactic was particularly useful during sieges and close-quarters combat, where maintaining defensive integrity was key. Other formations, like the wedge or the triple line, allowed the legions to adapt to various battlefield conditions, always ensuring that they could outmaneuver and overwhelm their opponents. What set Caesar's tactics apart from his adversaries was his ability to read the battlefield and make swift adjustments. While his enemies often relied on brute force or static defenses, Caesar's legions could shift tactics mid-battle, exploiting weaknesses the moment they appeared. For example, in the Battle of Alesia, Caesar's forces were surrounded by a much larger Gallic army. Yet through a combination of defensive fortifications and tactical genius, Caesar's men not only held their ground, but launched a counterattack that crushed the Gallic forces. This flexibility, paired with the discipline of his soldiers, made Caesar's legions nearly unbeatable. Beyond battlefield tactics, engineering played a key role in the success of the legions. Roman engineers traveled with the army, constructing fortifications, bridges, and siege engines with incredible speed. This allowed Caesar to maintain momentum during his campaigns, as his forces could move quickly and fortify their positions almost overnight. The construction of defensive walls and trenches at the Battle of Alesia, for instance, showcased the Roman ability to combine military strategy with engineering prowess, trapping their enemies and cutting off any hope of escape. In every sense, the legions were more than just soldiers. They were the architects of their own victories. The revolutionary techniques and strategies employed by Caesar's legions did more than secure his conquests. They forever altered the way wars were fought across the ancient world. The training, discipline, and tactics that Caesar refined set a new standard for military excellence, one that future empires would emulate and expand upon. Before Caesar, many armies relied on sheer numbers, unpredictable battle plans, or the hope that chaos would confuse their enemies. After Caesar, war became an organized, calculated affair where discipline and training triumphed over disorder and brute force. The legion's influence extended far beyond the Roman Empire. As Rome expanded, its military practices were adopted by the regions it conquered, spreading these advanced techniques across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. The idea that an army could be a disciplined, well-trained unit rather than a loose collection of warriors was revolutionary. The same principles that Caesar employed, cohesive units, adaptable formations, and strategic engineering, became staples of military doctrine for centuries to come. Generals from Alexander the Great to Napoleon Bonaparte would study the legions, recognizing the profound impact their methods had on the battlefield. Even after Caesar's death, his legacy lived on through the legions that continued to serve Rome. Emperors like Augustus and Trajan built their military campaigns on the foundation Caesar had laid. The legions became more than just a tool of war. They became the backbone of the Roman Empire, enforcing Roman law, expanding its borders, and maintaining peace through the sheer force of their presence. The Pax Romana, a period of relative peace and stability across the empire, was secured largely through the constant readiness of the legions. Their mere existence was a deterrent to rebellion and invasion, showcasing the enduring power of Caesar's military innovations. The cultural impact of Caesar's legions was equally significant. The image of the Roman soldier, clad in armor, marching in perfect unison, became a symbol of Roman dominance and civilization. The discipline and loyalty of these soldiers not only won battles, but also embodied the Roman ideals of duty and service to the state. This image has persisted throughout history, influencing how military forces have been structured and romanticized in art, literature, and popular culture. The legend of Caesar's legions, immortalized in history books and retold through generations, became the benchmark for what an elite military force could achieve. While the tactics and technologies of warfare have evolved over the centuries, the core principles that made Caesar's legions so effective remain relevant even today. Modern military academies still teach the importance of discipline, unit cohesion, and adaptability. values that were perfected on the battlefields of Gaul and Britain under Caesar's watch. The revolutionary training methods of the legions and their ability to shape ordinary men into an unstoppable force serve as a timeless example of how military innovation can reshape the course of history.